horn, and I'm here to give you a glimpse into my take on the essence of hand horn playing. In this video, I would like to give you an insight into what it feels like to play the hand horn and explore a few things you need to know when you're composing for it. Whilst hand horn playing has existed since the 18th century, there's been a revival in hand horn playing in the past few decades, and we always welcome new works that search for a new voice and explore new possibilities for this imperfect yet beautiful instrument. So let's get started. Whilst it is impossible for me to explain the exact science behind how I produce different notes with air and embouchure, I can provide a brief summary of how I approach this area of playing. It is easy to focus solely on what the right hand is doing to create the different pitches, but air and embouchure play a really important role as well. The hand horn is really flexible in terms of pitch, especially on a historical mouthpiece, and you can bend notes in tune just by using your embouchure. A lot of French methods mention that the key to hand horn playing is having an excellent ear, and for me, if I can hear myself sing in tune in my head, I can play in tune. In the example earlier, I used different airspeed, volume and spin to colour the overall phrasing, dynamic and resonance. When I go from an open note to a stop note, I tend to cushion the stop note with air. This gives not only clarity and evens out the volume between the open and stop notes, but also stabilises the intonation and quality of the stop note. The left hand holds the horn in a similar position to the modern horn. I find it important to find a way where I can hold the instrument comfortably and support enough weight to allow my right hand to move. For me, most of the stopping I do with my right hand comes from the wrist movement that changes the angle of the right hand in relation to the bell, as well as how much pressure and weight I apply from my palm against the bell. However, I also make subtle movements with my fingers as well, as different gestures can result in different timbres. I also like to think that my right hand correlates to what I'm doing with my ear and in many ways embodies the musical concepts I have in my mind. When I move between notes or within a longer phrase, I tend to think of the contours of the line and often move in the most efficient and effective way. This is especially important in fast passages, where the hand gestures are more approximations that aid me in achieving the line rather than clearly executing each note. It is important to note that all the ideas mentioned in both sections of playing technique function together as a whole, and they complement and help each other when I try to realize my musical concepts. As you can hear, the louder I play, the more metallic and nasally the sound becomes. I've also played the written F sharp and A as stopped in the build-up before playing them as open. So there's a technical as well as musical reason behind this. Given the notes in the arpeggios are all stopped, it makes technical sense to play this whole sequence as stopped, whereas the passage after the forte contains open notes. Musically, I like having the aesthetic of the closed notes in the build-up really adding to that tension, which makes the resolution more satisfying when the opening sequence is all opened. In this scenario, I use a mixture of right-hand gestures and air to change the timbre. In the case of the written F, the first time I played them, the sound's quite pushed with a metallic quality, whereas the second time, it's a lot rounder. So to achieve that, I played them by closing the bell with my wrist and using faster airspeed, whereas the second time is done by spinning the air a little bit more, but with a slower airspeed and curling the fingers to cover the bell. I've covered microtones in terms of notation in my previous video, but I just want to mention that the hand horn is really flexible in terms of pitch, and apart from the obvious microtones in the 11th and 13th harmonics, you can also play microtones using right hand technique. As you can hear, traditionally, horn players produce two notes at the same time by playing a low note while singing the upper note. There are obvious drawbacks, as you can only play notes around the second and third harmonics, and I personally can't sing that high. However, in Pip Eastop's Set the Wild Echoes Flying, he instructed the performer to play the top line while singing the bottom line. This is really unconventional and it's actually quite difficult to achieve without spending a lot of time working on it. However, this method translates really well on the hand horn, and you can write for both lines chromatically and independently, and I find the balance between the two lines a lot easier to achieve. When it comes to percussive sounds, it is really important to remember that some professionals perform on original instruments, like this one, and any percussive effects created by hitting the instrument are strongly discouraged over fears of damaging the instrument. In terms of effect pedals, I personally have zero experience working with them, but I'm really interested in working with them, and if you want to use them, please chat to me, as I would really love to explore this area together. I just want to mention that a player will require both hands to play the hand horn, So I would advise that should you write for pedals, they're operated by foot rather than by hand. So when it comes to mutes, a straight mute is common for horn players to have. However, you're limited to the notes in the harmonic series. An adjustable mute with a chord that allows you to play chromatically does exist, as seen in historical evidences as well as modern productions. However, very few people own one, and I would not recommend composing with that mute in mind, unless you do not mind players executing those passages without the mute and using hand technique to correct the notes. So, I hope this gives you an idea into what it feels like to play the hand horn, from the concepts to the realizations. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below or email me. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one.